Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Sound Bites on Wisp Sports Radio. Wisp Sports is brought to you by Highlands Earache Drops.
Have you been diagnosed with an earache by a physician? For natural relief due to earache pain, fever, irritability, and sleeplessness, try Highlands Homeopathic Earache Drops and Tablets. Highlands has been trusted for generations to provide safe, effective homeopathic medicines for all members of the family. There's no alcohol and no sting. You can get back to doing what you love. Go to highlands.com/ear-pain to find a retailer near you. That's highlands.com/ear-pain. Claims are based on traditional homeopathic practice, not accepted medical evidence. Not FDA evaluated. Read and follow label directions.
Sound Bites is a bi-weekly podcast providing you with practical information on holistic nutrition. On each episode, we feature a new topic to empower you to make healthier choices so you can improve your overall health, performance, and prevent disease. Welcome to episode 11 of Sound Bites with your host, MC. I have a super fun topic for you guys this week, and it's going to make your life easier. It's going to allow you to take charge of your health without having to rely on anyone. And when you go grocery shopping, you actually understand what you're buying, what you're putting in your body, because it is your responsibility. Companies, food manufacturers are going to put whatever they want in their food, so it's up to you to understand what actually is in the food that you are eating. Now, what I'm going to explain to you, it's going to be in an easy way, not complicated at all, so that you can grab food, especially packaged processed food, and you can understand the labels by just looking at very specific information. Now, I'm going to ask you to not fall for whatever is on the cover, whether it says organic, gluten-free, fat-free, or it says this is the best snack in the world. You have to understand that when you turn around the package and you read the food label, the story might be completely different than what they are trying to sell you. For example, you go to the store, you go get some bread, and you're like, I'm going to get this whole wheat bread that looks super healthy. And then you turn around and you look at the ingredients and you realize that it has enriched flour, refined sugar, and all of those things that will make it even the same if you just buy the regular bread. So you might think you're buying a healthier option just by looking at the front of the package, but when you turn it around, you realize that's not the case. So the first tip I'm going to give you is to look at the ingredients. Something very important is that the way the ingredients are listed are by the most abundant ingredient is going to be the first ingredient. So let's say something you buy has a lot of water, for example. The first ingredient is going to be water. Let's use another example and say something you buy has a lot of sugar. The first ingredient is going to be sugar. The second ingredient might be enriched flour, for example. So it's also in high quantity, but not as much as the first ingredient. So the way ingredients are listed, it's going to be by what is mostly on the product that you're eating. A lot of people don't know that, so that's something good to know. The second tip is shorter ingredient list is usually better. It's not always the case, especially with the foods that they have nowadays, like superfoods and all of those amazing ingredients that they add. But most of the times, you want to look for products that have a shorter ingredient list because it's easier for you to see what's there and not miss something that you cannot even pronounce. Now, the other thing that I see a lot of people missing is, let's say you grab something and it says it has 80 calories per serving. So what does that mean? That means that Per serving, you're going to get 80 calories. But some of the times, a product has 8 servings, 5 servings, 3 servings, 2 servings. So you actually have to multiply the serving size per container. So if it says it has 80 calories and it is 2 servings per container, you have to multiply the 80 calories times 2. So that means that what you're eating is actually going to have 160 calories, not 80. So make sure you check the serving size and you check how many servings per container are on a specific product. Now, something really big, which is actually kind of general because this is going to be different for everyone, is the amount of calories. Now, we all have different diets, we all have different lifestyles, we all have different dietary needs, but depending on how many calories you know you should be eating a day, that should be something to guide you. So if you are eating around 1,800 calories a day and you eat a bag of chips that has 1,000 calories, obviously that's going to be way too high. So just make sure you look at the calories based on what you need. When it comes to processed foods, I personally like to stay between 150 to 200 calories per, that's all I would eat, the 150 to 200 when it's processed, okay? When it would tell you the number of calories. The other thing that I suggest you look for are fats. Now, not all fats are healthy. The one specifically you should be looking for are trans fats. Those you should completely avoid. They have no nutritional value. They're not good for you, and they should not even be in your food. Now, the foods that you should look for are saturated fat, unsaturated, and there's actually a lot of different types of fat. So let's just focus on the one you should totally avoid, and that's going to be trans fat. Now, when it comes to saturated fat, there are, I would say, some good and some that are not so good. Example of good ones are coconut oil, ghee, just because they have a lot of beneficial properties, but I personally recommend that you don't go over 14 grams per servings. That is 14 grams of carbohydrates per serving. And the reason for that is because most people have a little elevated carbohydrate intake, so you never want to have high carbohydrate, high fat intake on a specific diet. Now, if you're doing a high fat diet, that's a different story. But for the purpose of this episode, I'm just assuming that most people are intaking more carbohydrates than they're intaking fat. So the other thing is sodium. Now, sodium is mostly important when it comes to processed food, just because they add a lot of sodium to keep the food fresh, or to not go bad, not really fresh. So when it comes to sodium, remember that the daily recommendation is around from 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams. Now, again, this is different for everyone. If you are an athlete, if you are outside a lot, you're a heavy sweater, that might be a little bit different for you. But what you can look at a food label for is not exceeding 200 milligrams per product. Okay, now the type of salt that I recommend, it's Himalayan salt, and I've talked about this before in other episodes, just because it not only contains sodium, but it also contains very important minerals that you need on a daily basis. Now, the last two things I'm going to talk about are carbohydrates. When you look at a food label, you're going to realize that carbohydrates are divided into 2 or 3 different sections. Sugar, fiber, and some of the products might have sugar alcohols as well. Now, as you probably know, sugar should not be the highest ingredient if you're trying to have a healthier diet. Look for good types of sugar, whether it is stevia, monk fruit, or something that's fruit-based. You want to make sure that the fiber intake is higher than the sugar intake. And you want to make sure that when you are eating the sugar alcohols, some of them are going to cause bloating. So if you notice you're eating something that has sugar alcohol, and then you notice that you're bloated, you have cramps, or you're just not feeling so good, it might be the sugar alcohol. So just look for those. And the last thing that I want to talk about is some of the times it would say total carbohydrates 15. And then when it says sugar, it might say 5, and fiber, it might say 5. And then when you add them, you're like, well, I'm missing 5 because 5 plus 5 is 10, and it says it has 15. So what you should know is that the extra carbohydrates are coming from starch. And that's very important to know because starch does have an impact on your health. So just so you know where those extra grams are coming from. And now the last thing are proteins. Amazing if it has protein because it's going to allow you to stay fuller for a longer period of time. Now, when it comes to protein, I personally don't recommend that you go over 30 grams per package. So if you're going to eat a bar and it has 40 grams of carbohydrates, that is a lot. I personally recommend that you stay within 15 to 25 grams of protein per serving, and if you only eat one serving.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
So, I hope you found this helpful, and if you like more information, please visit my website provided on the show notes. So you can also email info@wisports.com with any questions you may have about nutrition. There will also be links in the show notes accompanying this episode at wisports.com. Just go to listen and click on Soundbites, and while you're there, you can also find more conversations from the world of women's sport. Please subscribe to Wisp Sports Radio on your favorite podcast player. And please visit our sponsors at highlands.com/ear-pain. Thank you for listening and supporting women in sports.